often do you struggle with overspending? Like a lot, a little, or, somewhere in between? Well, I want to share a little secret with you, a secret about overspending that most people don't think about, and that is that overspending isn't really an impulse buying problem. You know how I talk about that a lot, where you go into the store and you see something and you just have to have it, right? That's kind of an impulse thing. But overspending instead is a not having a plan problem. So plans that turn into systems, that turn into routines, that then turn into habits are the key to staying on budget. That is why in this episode, I am going to share with you 3 areas you should always have a plan that will help keep you from overspending and stay on budget. So go get your drink, open your heart to God, and let's dive in. If you're ready to build wealth, ensure financial security, stop overspending, and finally create a budget you can stick to, you mama are in the right place. Hi, I'm Molly, a budget coach and financial strategist who went from living paycheck to paycheck to paying off debt, saving money, and going on vacation, all by budgeting. And I help mamas just like you budget and create God-centered systems and routines so that you too can have financial freedom. Now stop pinching those pennies and let's dive in. Are you tired of not being able to stick to your budget? Do you wish that there was a way to get rid of the inconsistent paychecks and have the same amount of money going towards your bills every single paycheck? Are you ready for financial freedom? Then let's set up a budget you can actually stick to, one that will bring you consistent numbers every single time you sit down to budget, one that you don't have to make over and over and over and over again, but is something that is set up on repeat, one that makes tracking easy and doesn't need every single transaction written down simply to follow it. All you have to do to make this your reality is book a budget coaching session. You can do this by going to www.calendly.com/Molly Bunnell. So that's CALENDLY.com/MOLLY, B as in boy, ENELL. It's also in the show notes in case you didn't catch that. But just imagine what your life would be like if you were no longer stressing over living paycheck to paycheck. If you were able to stick to your budget, imagine the freedom you would feel, the relief and the excitement to be able to do more with your money. And all it takes to start walking down this path is to book one budget coaching session. Yes, I said one. So go to, again, calendly.com/Molly Bunnell and turn this dream into your reality. If you're listening to this podcast, I'm sure that just like me, you are the planner between you and your husband, right? I mean, as a mom, you kind of have to have somewhat of plans. I do know that there are people out there that are not the A-type personality, right? That can just fly by the seat of their pants and life still functions for them. I used to be that girl, and then I had kids, and now I'm very much type A, right? But the reason I'm asking that is because even if you're the type A or the type B type of personality, when you go into meal planning or into buying anything and you don't have a plan, and I mean like more detailed than just, oh, I have a meal plan, right? Then you are going to end up overspending. You're going to end up not being able to stick to your budget, and things are just gonna go haywire. You're gonna end up like me. Like here lately, my meal plan has just tanked. My emotions around it, I don't know what it is. Maybe it's the pregnancy. Maybe it's just the fact that things are changing and shifting in what I want to do with my food. And it's just making me go crazy. But Before I get into the areas of what I want to talk about of where you should have a plan, I want to explain this a little bit more of what it looks like to have a plan and be able to function versus not having a plan, right? So my weekends, I am the planner in the family. My husband is not. And like I said, I used to be this way. So I totally get it. And I'm kind of figuring out my way of shifting in between the two, right? But my husband just kind of goes, oh, I want to do this. And he goes on impulse of whatever he wants to do and just goes and does it, right? That drives me insane. But my weekends, when I'm with him, I just have to loosely plan my day. Say, hey, I want to get these things done. If not, I guess I'll do it the next day. I'd really like them to get done on the weekend versus during the week, because then it makes my weeks go so much smoother and I can actually get other things done. But that's kind of the mindset I have to have, because with him, who knows if we're staying home or if we're leaving the house? Who knows how long we're leaving the house, when we're leaving the house, which makes it really hard to be able to not eat out, right? Because where I live is 30 minutes from any town. I mean, Brady is 15 minutes away. But I don't really like eating out there much. It's mostly just bar food, and I get real sick and tired of the grease, right? But my point is, I don't have any rhyme or reason to my weekends because my husband just goes and does whatever. And because of that, our money on the weekends is all over the place. It's hard to track it. It's hard to be able to say, okay, well, I don't want to eat out, so we need to make this food before we go, because who knows if we're going to go, when we're going to go, how we're going to go. All those questions are just down the drain with him. And so when I am able to follow a plan, my weeks go so much smoother. My money is able to not be throwing spaghetti at the wall, oh, do we need it this weekend? Do we need it next weekend? Who knows and who cares, because we got to feed ourselves right now kind of thing, right? And that's what I want to get away from. Now, yes, it may not be that simple, especially with your husband liking to just do what mine does, right? But when you have a plan, those things can be taken care of, right? You don't have to say, oh, well, we're going to go out to eat. Well, do we have the money for that? Well, we got to find it somewhere because we're in town and it's supper time and we don't have a choice because we're going to be starving by the time we get home. Nothing's pulled out. Nothing's ready. That can be taken care of, right? I got to work on that, finding a system to have meals already made and in the freezer, so I can't just pull them out, pop them in the oven, warm them up in the microwave, whatever the meal is, and then we can eat it, right? That makes that kind of thing go away. But if it's 6:00 and we're starving, that means we're not going to be eating till 7:30, 8 o'clock, and my girls go to bed around 8:30, which just pushes into that area, and it just makes it a struggle, right? And so that's what we're trying to get away from. That is the kind of things that I want you to have a plan for in your budget so that you are able to not have to struggle to figure out where the money's coming from, to know the answers to these questions, to on the fly say, oh, you want to do that? Fine, I've got this in the oven or in the freezer. Let me go pull it out, thaw it, and we can eat it while we're going somewhere, right? Those are the things that I want to talk about today. And having answers to those and being able to fly by the seat of your pants or run from your plan, whatever may be going on that day, is going to make life and your budget and being able to stick to it so much easier. Alrighty, so let's get into the 3, and I do have a bonus area, but the 3 areas that you should always have a a spending plan around so that you are able to stay on top of your budgeting, stick to your budget, and prevent the overspending that comes with not having a plan. Because like I said, a lot of your overspending doesn't come from impulse buys. Yes, those happen, especially if you go in and you're like, oh, I have a plan, but I just don't want to follow it kind of thing. That is something you just have to work on, being diligent and actually disciplining yourself to stay on budget, on plan, right? But when you don't have a plan, impulse buying is just not really a thing because you're like, oh, I can buy this. I don't have to worry about it, right? So we are going to dive into these 3 big areas that you should always have a plan for. The first one, and I'm sure you know what it is groceries and food. You should always have a meal plan. You should always have an eating out plan so that you know how much you're going to spend in these areas. And no, I'm not going to go in and tell you this is what you need to do. This is how you need to do it. But instead, I'm going to share with you a whole bunch of questions so that you can start thinking about what your specific spending plan needs to be in each of these areas, because no one family is the same. Your answers to these questions are going to be different than your friends. What is important to you is going to be different than your neighbor, right? So it's not going to be the same things. And that is why instead of saying, this is the plan that you need to follow and this is how you stick to it, I'm just going to give you a whole bunch of questions so that you can sit down and answer them and come up with a plan that you are going to stick to. Because it doesn't matter what Bob and Susan do next door. It matters about what you want to do, what your family wants to do, what is important and prioritized in your home. So with the meal plan, I'm not just talking about what kind of food, what kind of meals you're going to make, right? I'm talking about sitting down and figuring out what kind of meal planning system you're going to use. So you can do a system where you focus on bulk buying, right? You can do a system where you sit down, figure out what recipes you're going to use, figure out the recipe. You could do like a shelf cooking kind of system where you have all the ingredients in the shelf and you simply just replenish what you use kind of thing. There are so many different meal planning systems out there, and you just need to find one that flows with you, what works with your brain. I'm currently going through a phase where the system that I did use, which was sitting down, figuring out the meals that I'm going to make and getting the ingredients from that versus the other kind of systems, right? And switching into a different one because my brain just can't follow that. It just is taking too much time. It's taking too much energy to be able to do that right now. So I am trying to switch up my meal planning system, and it's a little bit of a struggle, a learning process, right? But once you get these things figured out and you've learned them and you've practiced them, you're going to figure out how to master them in your own way. And that is what makes things go so much smoother for you. So what meal planning system are you using? Are you bulk buying? Are you buying fresh produce from the farmer's market and then canning and freezing it? Or are you just eating it fresh? Are you growing a garden? Are you buying from local farmers of things like meat, honey, jams, milk, and so many more things that you can buy locally, right? From the farmers around you. Are you only buying in-season produce like at the store, right? Instead of at the farmer's market? Are you cooking from scratch, or are you buying pre-made items? I know there's times where I'm like, okay, we're going to make muffins, but am I going to make them from scratch, or am I going to buy a boxed thing, or am I going to buy them already completely made, right? What kind of health priority is going on, or time restraints am I struggling with that week, right? There are so many things that could be going on in life, but if you do want to make it from scratch, there are systems that you can put in place, like making your own boxed, which I put quotes around, boxed items where you just add in the liquid ingredients, pour in the dry ingredients and go with it, right? But you have to have time and be diligent to put those pre-mixes together kind of thing. So what is your priority in this area? Are you looking to be healthy or just filling tummies? Like, what is your focus? What kind of recipes are you using? Are you doing in-season recipes? Are you doing the same recipes every single week? What kind of system do you want to use here, right? How many meals do you want to eat? Like, this is a good one. I know a lot of the times when I'd sit down and figure out a recipe, I would only figure out the dinner recipe, and then breakfast and lunch was just kind of on repeat kind of thing, and then we'd have snacks here and there. But I didn't bring in really snacks until I started having like blood sugar issues, and then I really had to start focusing on what kind of snacks I was going to use. So how many snacks a day are you going to do? Do you just snack all day for breakfast, lunch, and then have a big dinner? Do you have a big lunch? Like, what is your system here, right? What is your importance, your priority? Do you have recurring systems for these things, or do you do something different every single time? Or does that just make you overwhelmed, but you still want to have the flexibility of doing something different? So maybe you do one day where you do something new every single week and the rest is reoccurring, right? There are so many things that you can do, but if you don't sit down and think about them, you're not going to be able to figure out what it is that you do. And when you go to bring your food into your house, it's going to be overwhelming, it's going to be stressful, and you're not going to know how to move forward, which has been me the past couple of months. And I don't know why, because I used to be great at meal planning, but there's just something shifting in my life that I want to change and I want to move away from. And maybe I need to sit down and ask myself these same questions, because I thought I had the answers to them and maybe I just don't. And I need to figure out what that is for our family now, as my life and the season that I'm living in is shifting and our priorities are shifting, right? And I'm learning and I'm growing and I just need to flow with that, right? And maybe you're in the same season, the same boat that I am, where you're just in between one and the other and what you were doing just isn't working. So maybe you just need to sit down, re-go through these questions, just figure out what it is that you really want, so that when you sit down to meal plan, you know what you're doing and you can do it easily and on repeat. When you're eating out, how many times a week are you going to eat out? What kind of eating out are you doing? Are you going to do like a sit down? Are you going to do fast food? What is your price point, like your max price point for eating out? If you have a big family, eating out is probably not happening very often, right? It might just be once a month. It might be every 2 months, depending on how big of a family and how small of a budget you have. Or maybe just eating out isn't a priority, and it might not be because you have a small budget, but that you'd rather put that money towards something else more productive and more fun than going and eating out. Because if you're like me, I think my food that I cook is much better than the food that I go and eat out. Maybe it's just the area I live in, but I don't like eating out much because I think that I cook much better than a lot of the places that we go to. But like, do you only go out for special occasions? Maybe that's something that you do. You only go out for birthdays or anniversaries or for celebrations, right? That could be something that is your system, and you just have to figure out what it is. Okay, so moving on from the groceries and food area category, another category that you really need to focus on and have a plan around, because it is a large portion of your budget, is the bills. Yeah, you may go, well, how do I have a spending plan around my bills? Well, there are some questions that you do need to ask, right? So how much of your income are you willing, not how much is already being taken by your bills, right? How much are you willing to tie up in bills? Because it is tied up, and it is permanently tied up until you go in and get rid of the bills, right? And bills could be utilities, debt, subscriptions, anything that you have to put money towards every single month. And if you don't, you can get penalized by either not being able to use it anymore or being sent to collections. I mean, there's lots of ranges of how you can be penalized, right? But that is what I consider a bill. So how much are you willing to put towards your bills from your monthly paycheck, right? Are you willing to put 50% of it towards your bills? Like, is that something that's actually going to bring you joy, or is that going to stress you out? What amount are you willing to tie up in your bills and then divvy it out? How much of that are you willing to put towards utilities? How much of that towards debt? How much of that towards subscriptions? Maybe you don't want subscriptions at all. Maybe you do, right? What is important to you and your family? You have to figure that out. And then you have to know that when you want to go buy something, you can say, okay, well, this is how much we're willing to put towards debt. This is how much we already have in debt. And this is how much it costs to get this thing. Can we get it, right? It helps you make more calm in the moment financial decisions that are strong and you're confident about, that are not going to stress you out if you do decide to get that thing. Because think about it. If you go to buy a car, let's just say a car, there are multiple things that can be tied up in getting a car. You can have technically a utility thing, which would be insurance, right? You would have the debt of the car itself. And then you could also get a subscription for some of these newer cars for things to be able to tell you what's going on in your car. I can't think, like OnStar. There you go. OnStar. You could start your car from your phone kind of thing. You can do all these other fancy things. You could get internet in your car. Like, there are so many things that you can do and so many areas that are tied up in buying one thing. So how much of that are you willing to put towards your thing that you want to buy now? Or is it something that you just need to save up for so that you can afford the insurance and the taxes that are going to come with it? Because don't forget about that. You will have to pay taxes. You will have to get tags for your car every single year. And if you get a new car, getting those tags is not cheap. Like I went from an old, what is it? It's a 96 Ford F-150 where I was paying like $30 to $60 in taxes to renew my registration every single year. And then I got a 2014, and this was like 10-ish years ago. I got a 2014 vehicle, and I went to pay get the registration, and it was like $400. I'm like, oh, I don't want to get a new vehicle anymore. Like, once I realized that the difference there, I'm like, oh my goodness, okay, I don't want a new vehicle anymore. I don't want to pay that much every single year for that kind of thing. I know that's a silly example, but you understand, like, there are things that you don't realize until it happens that it's attached to a bill that you are getting, right? So figure out everything that's tied to it that money has to be a part of, and make the decision based off of that if that's a good purchase for you, right? Okay, so then what is your max amount in each one of these areas, right? What are you willing to put towards your utilities, towards your debt, towards your subscriptions? Once you have that plan, it's going to be so much easier to make strong financial decisions and to keep margin in your budget, because you're not going to be going, well, I've spent all my monthly income on tying them up in bills, and now I can't do these fun things. I may have all this money that I'm bringing in. I may be bringing in $100,000 a year, maybe $200,000 a year, but it's all tied up in bills, and I have like $20 to my name every single paycheck. No, we don't want that for you. So you gotta figure out what these numbers are so that you are able to have margin in your budget. The third area that you need to figure out a spending plan for. And I'm not going to go into each and every single one of these because there can be lots of questions for every single one. But I think based on the last two categories, you're able to figure out what kind of questions you need to figure out or ask yourself to really dive into these specific individual spending plans, right? But the other area that you need to have spending plans for is your sinking funds or your savings buckets, your savings accounts, right? Those are the things that you are saving up for to pay for throughout the year, and you need to have a plan around them so that when you go to spend that money, it just doesn't fly down the drain because you're like, oh, well, I've already spent it all and I needed to get that, but I don't know how I'm going to get that now kind of thing, right? So some of these areas in your savings and sinking buckets, I am combining them together. Your sinking funds and savings buckets could be different for each and every person. So again, I can't tell you like you need one in this area, you need one in this area, but I can just give you suggestions. And one that I do know for sure that you are going to want to have is a Christmas spending plan, a holiday, birthday, gift spending plan. Then you might have bulk buying. Maybe that's something that's a priority for you. Maybe it's hair and makeup. Maybe it's fun play, which could be vacations. It could be camping. It could be holiday activities, family fun activities, going to sports, and so much more, right? It could be a kids plan. So like clothes, school supplies, sports that they're in, if that's something that you do. Maybe it's just a big clothes plan for you and your husband, right? There are so many things that you could be saving up for that's important for you, and figuring out what those are is important. And some of those things are even like more bills that you have to pay yearly, right? So when do these things happen? Like you can have money being saved up every single month or something, but if you don't know when these things happen, you're not going to be able to like have the money completely saved up that you want to have saved up, your goal amount, if you don't know when they happen, right? So how much are you going to spend in these areas? Where are you going to spend it? Do you have subcategories in those accounts like your Christmas budget, and you need to create an actual budget versus just a spending plan, right? What is the money going towards? What is your priority? Like knowing these things, knowing where you're going to spend the money, how you're going to spend it, what it's going towards. If you're going to buy something expensive, or if you just need to go a cheap frugal route this go around, that is something you need to know when you go to buy this stuff, right? And if you don't have those plans, that money can like disappear by the snap of your fingers, right? You know that, I know that. We just tend to buy whatever we see, the first thing it is, and we call it good, or we go something more expensive than we probably should have, because we don't realize that it's going to take up a good majority of the budgeted amount that we had saved up. So the fourth thing, and this kind of just came to me as I was, explaining what it was like flying by the seat of your pants earlier, but that's to have systems to help you fly by the seat of your pants, essentially. Like if you're a planner like me, what systems do you need to put in place to be able to prevent eating out if that's something that you don't want to do, or if it's something that you don't have the finances for and you have to pull from savings in order to feed your children, because that's something that has to be taken care of, right? It's not something you can say, oh, well, we're just not going to eat today, right? Yeah, no, that's not going to happen. But what systems do you need to put in place to prevent buying things that you already have that maybe you forgot that because you just had to run out the door, right? So those are things that you do need to think about too, is not just the simple, easy, and no, it's not easy, but the things that you do on repeat, the things that you're like, oh yeah, I think about that all the time. But there are things out there like when you have to leave your house on a dime, what are you going to do? How are you going to feed your family? How are you going to not spend the money that you want to put in savings or towards debt to achieve financial goals? How are you going to take care of that and be able to do the thing without freaking out, stressing over it, and putting you in a bad mood because of it, right? So that's another thing for another day, but I did want to touch on it and suggest that you start looking into that kind of thing, right? Okay. So this episode's getting a little long, so we're gonna tie it up here, but I want to let you know that this is something that you have to do. You have to create and set boundaries, or you're going to spend your money on anything and everything that you see. And you're just going to say, okay, I need this, I need this, I need this, I need this. And because you don't have a plan, you're going to end up overspending and not being able to use the small amount that may be budgeted, but rather dig into something else to be able to pay for all of it. And then you're overspending and you're beating yourself up and you feel like a failure because you didn't have a plan, essentially. So pick one area that I mentioned above and nail down your plan around how you're going to spend your money, around how you're going to prevent from spending your money, right? Because having the prevention in place is just as important as knowing how you're going to spend it, right? So I hope that you enjoyed this episode. Again, I want to remind you that if you want to set up a budget that you can actually stick to, one that will bring you consistent numbers, one that you don't have to do over and over again, but rather is set up on repeat, one that you don't have to worry about tracking simply to stay on budget. Like, how exhausting is that? I don't like to track. I'm sure you don't like to track. It's something they used to have to do. Now, don't get me wrong, you still have to track some things to make sure that, your plans are going as needed or as planned. Man, my brain is just gone right now. But if this is something that you are wanting, that you really want to dig into and figure out what your next move is, then to make this a reality for you, all you have to do is book one coaching session. One budget coaching session is all it takes to start you down this path of having a budget that you can actually stick to. One that's going to bring you peace, one that's not going to stress you out, and one that's going to make things be so much easier because it's on repeat and you're not having to redo the thing every single time, right? So all you have to do to book that session is go to calendly.com/Molly Bunnell. So that's calendly.com/Molly with a Y, B as in boy, ENELL. And let's turn this dream into your reality. Hey mama, I pray that today's episode has inspired you and grew you. If so, will you please share it with that friend who is praying for a budget breakthrough, and leave a rating and review so that you can help get the podcast out to other mamas struggling with their budget. Also, get some support for yourself by joining my free Facebook group and becoming an insider, where you get weekly support emails and are the first to find out when something new is on its way. You can find the links in the show notes, and I will see you right back here next Tuesday.